Psalm chapter 29 is a majestic call to worship that lifts our eyes to the power and glory of God. Written by David, this psalm invites us to behold the voice of the Lord, not in silence, but in thunder, in waves, in wind, and in wonder. In a world filled with noise and chaos, Psalm chapter 29 reminds us that God's voice still reigns supreme, over nature, over nations, and over our lives. It's a song of reverence that declares the Lord's strength and splendor, not just in the heavens but in the storm. Whether you're standing in awe of His creation or weathering the storms of life, this psalm assures us. The God who thunders is also the God who gives peace. Let's dive in and listen for the voice of the Lord. You can download the full transcript from the description below. Explanation. David opens by calling on the mighty, likely referencing angelic beings or the powerful of the earth, to give the Lord the honor due His name. This is not implying we add strength to God, but that we acknowledge and ascribe to Him the power and majesty that are already His. Application. We live in a culture that often glorifies human strength and achievement. This verse reorients our focus to give God the credit for all power, beauty, and success. Begin each day by attributing your strength and blessings to Him. Final takeaway. True worship begins when we stop celebrating our own might and start acknowledging God's unmatched power. Verse 2. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto His name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Explanation. David emphasizes worship that is both reverent and beautiful. The glory due implies that God's name carries weight and worthiness. The beauty of holiness suggests that worship should be marked by purity, awe, and sacred devotion. Application. Our worship must not be casual or self-centered. Holiness, both inward purity and outward reverence, should characterize how we approach God in prayer, song, and life. Final takeaway. Worship isn't about style, it's about sanctity. Adore God not only with your lips but with a life set apart for Him. Verse 3. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. The Lord is upon many waters. Explanation. God's voice is portrayed as powerful, like thunder rolling over mighty waters. In ancient times, waters represented chaos and danger. This verse declares God's sovereignty over all forces of nature and chaos. Application. When life feels overwhelming like a storm at sea, remember that God's voice reigns above the noise. He's not silent in our storms, He speaks with authority. Final takeaway. The same voice that commands the waves can calm your soul. Listen for Him above the noise. Verse 4. The voice of the Lord is powerful, the voice of the Lord is full of majesty. Explanation. This reiterates the unmatched strength and grandeur of God's voice. His word is not weak or uncertain, it is commanding, majestic, and final. Application. Instead of giving more weight to social media, news, or human voices, prioritize hearing and obeying God's word. His voice holds eternal authority. Final takeaway. What voice has your attention? Let the majestic voice of God outweigh all others. Verse 5. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars, yea, the Lord breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. Explanation. Cedars of Lebanon were known for their strength and grandeur, symbols of power and stability. God's voice can shatter even the mightiest natural elements, showing His unmatched authority. Application. Nothing is too strong or too deeply rooted for God to handle. Whether it's pride, sin, or strongholds, His word can break it. Final takeaway. What seems unmovable in your life is no match for God's voice. Trust in His power to break what needs breaking. Verse 6. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. Explanation. Even the great mountains and forests, Lebanon and Syrian, Mount Hermon, tremble and leap at God's voice. Nature itself reacts to His power as though startled or joyous. Application. Creation responds to God with movement and awe. How much more should we, made in His image, respond with willing surrender? Final takeaway. If even the mountains move at His voice, don't remain still when He speaks to your heart. Verse 7. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. Explanation. This likely refers to lightning, a symbol of divine power and judgment. God's voice governs even fire from heaven, dividing and directing it. Application. God doesn't just speak peace, He also speaks judgment and truth. Embrace both His comfort and His correction. Final takeaway. God's voice can light up the sky or light up your path. Let it refine, not frighten you. Verse 8. The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness. the Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. Explanation. Kadesh was a desert region representing barrenness and isolation. God's voice has the power to stir even the driest, most desolate places. Application. When your life feels like a wilderness, empty, dry, and directionless, God can still shake things up and bring renewal. Final takeaway. Even in the desert, God is not silent. Expect his voice to bring movement where there was none. Verse 9. The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds to calve, and discovereth the forests, and in his temple doth everyone speak of his glory. Explanation. God's voice causes even deer to give birth, an image of life and creation, and strips forests bare, an image of power and exposure. Both creation and the worshiping community respond by glorifying him. Application. God's voice brings both life and conviction. In the house of the Lord, the only right response is to declare his glory. Final takeaway. God's voice gives birth to new things and lays all things bare. Let your worship be full of reverence and truth. Verse 10. The Lord sitteth upon the flood, yea, the Lord sitteth king forever. Explanation. This verse recalls the great flood, possibly Noah's flood, affirming God's sovereign rule even over judgment. He remains enthroned above the chaos, eternally unshaken. Application. When everything around you is flooding, emotionally, financially, or spiritually, remember that God is not overwhelmed. He reigns above the storm. Final takeaway. Your crisis is not his crisis. He's still on the throne, and he always will be. Verse 11. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. Explanation. After declaring God's might and voice, the psalm ends with a promise. God's power is not just to awe, it is to bless. He gives his people both strength and peace. Application. In the storm and in the sanctuary, God equips his people. Whatever you face, he provides power to endure and peace to rest. Final takeaway. The God whose voice shakes the earth is the same God who steadies your soul. As we close today's journey through Psalm chapter 29, take this truth with you. The voice of the Lord is not just a sound, it's a source of strength. It breaks, it shakes, it thunders, but it also blesses, strengthens, and brings peace. No storm is greater than his power. No throne is higher than his. And no blessing is deeper than his peace over your life. The Lord will bless his people with peace. Psalm chapter 29 verse 11. If this message blessed you, like the video. Share your favorite verse in the comments. Subscribe to Living Word Media for more powerful verse-by-verse devotionals. Download the full transcript and reflection guide in the description below. Keep listening for his voice, it still speaks.